She watched another woman take over her home, but when her best friend stepped in to save her marriage, things took an unexpected turn. Did she help or make things worse? Let's find out. One shocking decision will change everything. Guys, grab your popcorn because what you're about to see in this captivating movie will amaze you. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, we'll be talking about an intriguing new Nigerian movie that is more than just entertainment. It's packed with valuable lessons you won't want to miss. So let's get into it. The movie begins with a married couple, Chisom and Frank. When Frank returns from work, his wife welcomes him warmly, does everything necessary, and expresses how much she has missed him. She then tells him about her friend, who needs accommodation. However, Frank is not in favor of the idea because of the complications that might come with it. Chisom pleads on behalf of her friend, assuring him that it's just one person staying for a short while. Frank reluctantly agrees, but only on the condition that she sings for him, a playful condition he sets. She agrees, and they move on. The next morning, Frank still refuses to allow Chisom's friend to stay, saying she didn't sing well enough to convince him. He uses the excuse that she hasn't given him food yet to dodge the conversation, and then leaves. Chisom, feeling tricked, complains about how her husband made her sing for something she dislikes doing. A few days later, Frank finally agrees to let Chisom's friend stay. Excited, Chisom goes to welcome her friend, Obiageri. Upon arrival, Obiageri is overwhelmed with joy at seeing Chisom living in such a well-furnished house. It feels like heaven to her. Chisom takes her to her room to freshen up, but when Obiageri turns on the shower, she gets startled by the hot water and rushes out. Chisom then teaches her how to use it to avoid further embarrassment. The next morning, while Chisom and Obiageri are enjoying their time together, Sonia walks in. After introductions, Chisom explains how long Obiageri will be staying. Sonia is shocked, but doesn't say much. She then goes to the kitchen to get food for herself, which Obiageri finds unsettling. However, she complies with Chisom's approach and leaves the kitchen with her. In the living room, Chisom explains to Obiageri that Sonia is Frank's best friend. Obiageri finds this inappropriate and doesn't take it lightly. Later, Sonia joins them in the living room and starts giving Chisom orders, sending her around. Obiageri is irritated by this, but tries her best to stay calm. The following day, Sonia walks into the house and finds Obiageri sleeping carelessly on the couch. She calls her out on it and orders her to fetch some water. Obiageri is shocked, but decides to use this as an opportunity to frustrate Sonia for her rude behavior. Upset by Sonia's attitude, Obiageri brings her tap water and pours it on Sonia's head. Furious, Sonia demands another glass of water. However, when Chisom realizes what Obiageri is up to, she takes the cup from her and does the right thing by serving Sonia properly. The next day, while doing house chores, Obiageri teases Chisom about how another woman is so attached to her husband, but Chisom remains unbothered. When Obiageri notices that Chisom has set the table for both her husband and Sonia, she becomes provoked. When Sonia arrives, Obiageri confronts her about her inappropriate behavior. This leads to an argument between the two. When Frank comes downstairs, Chisom quickly takes Obiageri outside to diffuse the tension. Frank, unsure of how to handle the situation, dismisses it and proceeds to have breakfast with Sonia, which further upsets Obiageri. Later, in the bedroom, Chisom talks to Obiageri privately, explaining that she doesn't want any issues in her marriage. She pleads with her friend to avoid conflicts with Sonia at all costs. Obiageri promises to stay out of trouble, and they move on. Meanwhile, Sonia expresses her discomfort about the fact that Frank not only defended Obiageri, a village girl, as she calls her, but also allowed her to stay in their house while she, Sonia, does not have the same privilege. She advises Frank not to give Obiageri any money, insisting that village girls are opportunists. Frank, exhausted from all the drama, listens but does not immediately respond. It remains to be seen whether he will follow Sonia's advice. Guys, wow! What kind of friend gets this close to a married man while his wife seems to be treated like a maid in her own home? What do you think? Is this right or wrong? Leave a comment as we continue to watch how this unfolds. Later that night, while Chisom is massaging her husband's legs, she tells him about her plan to give Obiageri 250,000 naira to start a business. Frank is strongly against the idea and insists that Obiageri should get a job instead. Upset, he abruptly ends the conversation, making it clear that he does not support the decision. Nevertheless, Chisom goes to Obiageri's room and they talk about Chinedu, Obiageri's husband. Obiageri expresses gratitude that she left him due to his bad behavior. She then tries to advise Chisom about Sonia's closeness to Frank, but Chisom resists, insisting that Obiageri should stay out of matters concerning her marriage. Chisom then surprises her friend by revealing that she has decided to give her 500,000 naira instead of 250,000 to start her business. Obiageri is overwhelmed with gratitude. She expresses her appreciation, praise for Chisom, and they share a joyful moment together. The next day, while Sonia was finishing a phone call in the living room, Obiageri approached her to greet her, thinking they were now on good terms. However, their conversation quickly escalated into another heated argument that nearly turned into a fight. Fortunately, Frank arrived just in time, and Obiageri walked away. Sonia then explained to him what had happened, and even vowed to beat Obiageri, but Frank found the situation amusing, joking that Obiageri was a strong village girl. Frustrated, Sonia stormed off. One day, Chisom was preparing a delicious meal for her husband. Frank insisted she add a little more pepper, and after several complaints, she finally agreed. Once the meal was ready, Frank and Sonia sat down to eat. But Sonia immediately started complaining that the food was too spicy. She took the opportunity to raise her voice at Chisom, insulting her over the small mistake. Frank tried to stop Sonia, but she wouldn't listen. Feeling humiliated, Chisom carried the food back to the kitchen, grumbling. Frank, displeased with how Sonia handled the situation, confronted her and warned her not to behave like that again. Sonia apologized, but then told Frank to have his wife prepare another meal for her. Ignoring her request, Frank continued enjoying his food. In the kitchen, Obiageri noticed Chisom looking upset. When she tasted the food, she realized it wasn't as spicy as Sonia had claimed. Chisom pleaded with Obiageri to stay calm, knowing exactly what Sonia was trying to do. But Obiageri wasn't one to back down easily. She saw Sonia sitting too comfortably next to Frank and decided to speak her mind. Despite being from the village and not as educated, Obiageri boldly told Sonia that her behavior and closeness to another woman's husband were inappropriate. Obiageri made the moment uncomfortable for Sonia, pointing out her wrongdoings and doing everything she could to divert Frank's attention away from her. Feeling the pressure, Sonia eventually left. Chisom apologized to Frank, who was left wondering why Obiageri had acted that way. Guys, what do you think? If you were in Chisom's position, how would you handle Sonia's inappropriate closeness to your husband? Would you stay calm for the sake of peace, or would you take a more direct approach? Share your thoughts as we see how this all plays out. The next day, Obiageri bought some body-hugging clothes for Chisom, believing that if she dressed the way Sonia did, Frank would start paying more attention to her and put an end to the nonsense. However, Chisom wasn't comfortable with the idea. She wanted to dress decently as a married woman should. But after Obiageri warned her that if she continued dressing conservatively, Frank might end up taking Sonia as a second wife, Chisom finally agreed to try on the clothes. When Chisom put on the outfit, she looked stunning, but she felt uncomfortable. Obiageri took the time to educate her on the benefits of dressing attractively for her husband, emphasizing that he wouldn't be able to resist her. Just as they were discussing this, they heard Frank arriving home. Panicking, Chisom quickly ran to her room, while Obiageri stayed behind, excited about what was about to happen. Later that day, Obiageri, who had just returned from the market, jokingly asked Frank why he hadn't offered her a ride when he saw her walking. Sonia quickly interrupted, making it clear that it was because she had instructed him not to. She then went on to humiliate Obiageri, who was furious that a single woman had so much control over a married man. Annoyed, Obiageri called Sonia names before storming off. Frank defended Obiageri, but Sonia kept trying to manipulate him. Meanwhile, Obiageri, unwilling to let things go, sneaked back and stole Sonia's food. Frank, pretending not to notice, remained silent as Sonia left, unaware of what had happened. Wow, this is getting interesting. How would you handle a situation where your spouse fails to set boundaries with their friends? What's your best solution? That same day, Chisom was feeling moody and complained that she was fed up with Sonia's behavior around her husband. Obiageri was thrilled to hear this, as it meant Chisholm was finally coming to her senses. Obiageri shared a plan with Chisholm on how to deal with Sonia, and as they discussed it, she began making funny yet serious prayers against Sonia. The two of them enjoyed their moment together, laughing at their cleverness. One day, Sonia came to visit Frank, but Chisholm and Obiageri locked her outside. Chisholm initially felt hesitant about it, but with Obiageri's encouragement, she kept the door locked. Sonia and Obiageri exchanged heated words as Sonia desperately tried to reach Frank on the phone, but his number wasn't going through. Meanwhile, inside the house, Chisholm and Obiageri were having a great time, joking around and discussing outrageous things, laughing uncontrollably. Guys, do you think this was the right thing to do? What if Frank reacts badly when he finds out? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 2 days later, while Frank and Sonia were in his car, he asked her why she hadn't been visiting lately. Sonia wasted no time in telling him about how his wife's friend had locked her out of the house. She then demanded that he send Obiageri away, saying she despised her and would never visit him again if he chose to keep her around. This was a serious ultimatum, and it remained to be seen what Frank's decision would be. That night, while Frank was working on his laptop, he told Chisholm that he no longer wanted Obiageri in their house and that she would have to leave by the weekend. Chisholm was calm about it, understanding that her husband was making this decision because of his friend. Frank confirmed this, and though she didn't like it, she agreed to let Obiageri leave. The next morning, as Chisholm was setting the dining table, Frank walked in and was momentarily stunned by how beautiful his wife looked. He complimented her, clearly lost in admiration. Chisholm then mentioned that she had an email from her mother to show him later, but she teased him, saying she would only do so if she dressed like this again. Frank was overwhelmed by his wife's newfound confidence and attractiveness, then left for work, still dazed by the sight of her. Obiageri and Chisholm laughed about how Frank had completely lost his mind over Chisholm's appearance, enjoying their moment together. Later that day, when Frank returned home, he was clearly eager to see his wife. Obiageri, knowing exactly why he was so excited, couldn't help but laugh and make fun of the situation. When Frank finally saw Chisholm, looking even more attractive than before, he suddenly decided not to go to work the next day. Originally, Chisholm had planned to go with Obiageri to her workplace, but seeing how things were unfolding between her and Frank, she changed her mind. It was clear that she and her husband were about to explore something special and private. Later that night, in the bedroom, Chisholm expressed to her husband that she was not comfortable with the idea of him chasing her friend out of the house, nor could she bring herself to do it. She insisted that Obiageri stay because she had done nothing wrong. Frank, realizing that his wife no longer respected his decisions, became angry. He stormed into Obiageri's room and ordered her to leave the next morning, accusing her of corrupting Chisholm. Obiageri agreed, but took the opportunity to speak her mind, making Frank understand the true value of his wife. She said many things that bruised his ego as a man, but he remained firm in his decision. Chisholm, unhappy with the way her friend spoke to her husband, decided to plead with him. This left Obiageri feeling hurt because she had wanted to make Frank feel guilty, but her efforts were in vain. Overwhelmed with emotions, she shed tears, knowing that her days in the house were numbered. The next morning, while Obiageri was packing her belongings, Sonia was excited about her departure and deliberately kicked her bag. Obiageri retaliated by giving her a firm slap. The situation almost escalated into a full-blown fight, but Frank and Chisholm intervened and separated them. Summoning her courage, Chisholm firmly told Sonia to leave her house, insisting that her friend would stay. Frank was shocked by his wife's defiance as he and Sonia walked away. Chisholm then took Obiageri back to her room and warned her never to insult her husband again, no matter what happened. Obiageri had no choice but to comply. Later that day, Frank returned home furious and raised his voice at Chisholm for kicking Sonia out. Chisholm tried to lighten the situation with a joke, but Frank, still fuming, threatened to slap her before storming off. It was only then that she realized how serious he was, leaving her in deep thought. Now, this raises an important question. Why would a man consider raising his hand against his wife over another woman? Does he have a reason, or is it simply unfair? Share your thoughts on what you believe is right. That night, unlike usual, Frank had not returned home. When he finally did, he knocked on the door, but Chisholm went ahead and locked it, instructing Obiageri not to open it. She then went to bed, while Obiageri, enjoying the moment, was thrilled by the turn of events. The next morning, Chisholm finally opened the door for her husband. Frank confronted her about locking him out of his own house, but she used the opportunity to express her frustration. She told him she could no longer tolerate the way things were going between him and Sonia, as it was becoming unbearable. Frank, angered by the confrontation, left, promising to do something she wouldn't believe. Obiageri, who had overheard the conversation, comforted Chisholm, sensing her fear of what Frank might do next. She encouraged her to stand her ground until her husband came to his senses. Chisholm considered apologizing, but Obiageri stopped her. As they continued talking, some of Obiageri's words took Chisholm by surprise. "This is a serious situation. Do you think this marriage can still be saved? Or has it already been shattered by one decision?" Well, the end of this story will definitely surprise you. Later that night, Chisholm privately expressed her jealousy to Frank. She told him how uncomfortable she felt in her own home while another woman freely disrespected her. Frank finally saw things from her perspective and realized his mistakes. He reassured her of his love and made it clear that Sonia meant nothing to him. Apologizing sincerely, they reconciled and rekindled their love. The next morning, while in the kitchen, Chisholm told Obiageri about Frank's apology. At first, Obiageri found it hard to believe, but after Chisholm explained everything, she accepted it. Meanwhile, Frank received a phone call from Obiageri's husband, who accused him of harboring his wife and called him all sorts of names before hanging up. Wanting to avoid trouble, Frank spoke to his wife about Obiageri leaving the house as soon as possible before leaving for work. When Obiageri heard about this, she was puzzled by her husband's behavior. However, she decided to leave since she had already gathered some things for herself. Her greatest satisfaction was that she had come to help her friend save her marriage. She and Chisholm shared an emotional moment, expressing how much they would miss each other. One day, Frank had a conversation with Sonia, telling her about what his wife had said. Sonia, however, showed no concern for Chisholm's feelings. Frank, determined to set things straight, made it clear that their closeness had to end. He told her his future was with his wife, not her. Eventually, Obiageri packed her things and left, which was a deeply emotional moment for both her and Chisholm. One fateful day, Frank surprised his wife by preparing a delicious meal. This gesture was unexpected, as he wanted to make it up to her and express his appreciation for her love, patience, and resilience. He showered her with heartfelt compliments, making Chisholm feel truly special. As they expressed their love for each other, he asked if she wanted anything. Just as she was about to mention her friend, Obiageri's son called, asking to spend the holiday with her. Frank's reaction was priceless as he sighed, "Oh my God, not again!" This movie teaches us that marriage is not for the immature. It highlights the importance of loyalty and the fact that fighting fire with fire never works. Having the right kind of friend who can stand up for you is truly valuable. It also reminds married women to do whatever it takes to protect their marriage and their husbands. No matter how imperfect your wife may be, as a husband, always stand by her and do whatever it takes to make her the happiest woman in the world. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more exciting updates on the latest Nigerian movies. See you next time.